All right, good evening. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. So tonight's a little bit more informal than normal. We are going to start with a presentation from the team regarding the operational and capital budget first. Once that's over, we're going to give council a quick chance to ask any questions they may have again. And then after that, then we'll call on the public to be able to ask some questions. Because of the number of people here, we want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity. We're going to ask you to hold it to 2 questions to start. And then if there's time at the end, then we'll give you an opportunity to ask some more at the end. All right? So Ms. Jeffrey, please feel free.
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council, the 2025 proposed operating budget, the cost of living rate in Alberta in accordance to StatsCan as of December 31st, 2024 was 3.75. The 2025 municipal operating budget approvals are pending. So as per the information that I've been able to gather off the internet and the news this evening, Calgary 8.9% municipal tax, Morinville 5.57%, Edmonton 5.7% they announced tonight, Sherwood Park 3.9%, St. Albert 3.6%, Medicine Hat 5.6%, Beaumont 5.82%, Canmore 3.9%, Red Deer 10.5%, Parkland County 2.5%, Banff 6.5%, Cochrane 2.63%. An average of all of these is 5 point something. The administration is proposing a 1.5% tax increase. In 2024, the assessment for the 2025 tax year has increased by $29,034,820. That is an increase in assessment of 7.32%. This includes the growth and the inflation factor. Inflation on residential properties increased by 5.11%, whereas growth increased by 0.53%. Growth on non-residential increased by 16.38%, and inflation on non-residential increased by 1.7%. Administration expected an inflation factor to affect the residential assessments because most sales on residential properties in 2024 were from $75,000 to $100,000 over assessed value. That means that your home is worth more in 2025 than it was in 2024. And of course, that affects what you will pay in taxes, and that the council has no control over. Council expenses. The proposed budget proposes a 13% increase in expenditure. That's to cover the legal counsel matters plus a 2% increase in council remuneration. General admin budget includes a proposed 61% increase to cover the severance of our previous CAO and the payments for the $2.5 million bridge financing that needed to occur. Policing, the town in 2025 is set to see a 13% decrease in policing costs invoiced by the province that is non-negotiable. Policing costs represents 4.4% of the tax levy required. Firefighting revenues are anticipated to increase by 21%, and expenditures are anticipated to increase by 91% due to the legal opinion that was received from the town solicitors. Firefighters under the provincial labor standards are considered employees, therefore must be paid for training and on call. Disaster services, this component will experience a projected increase in expenditure of 21% due to cover the costs related to the celebration of our emergency preparedness, which was very well received in our community in 2024. Bylaw services, this department is projected to increase by 35%, which includes an increase in contract services with the enhanced hours of service and associated labor costs. Common services expenses in 2025 projected to increase by 9%. Roads, the expenses are projected to increase by 26%, which is due in large part because of an increase in street lighting and the remainder allocated for street maintenance and the overlay to Heartland Drive. FCSS, the proposed expenditure increase is 3%. This covers the normal increase in the cost of operation. Planning and development, the revenues for this department are increasing by 80%. Which represents the possible sale of the cottage lands, 2 lots downtown, and the Learning Center building, which has already been sold. Overall expenditure is anticipated to be reduced by 3% as some of the contracts with consultants have been suspended. Communities in Bloom, a proposed increase of 45%, which covers the reallocation of wages to accurately reflect where staff perform their duties. Community Services, the expenditure decreases by 19%, which reflects the reallocation of salaries and wages to accurately reflect where staff are performing their duties. Recreation and Parks, there's a proposed decrease in revenues of 35%, reflecting the loss of government grants received in 2024 for the planting of trees, and an increase in expenditure of 6%, reflecting the funds that the town must provide towards the development of Memorial Park. Fitness Center, proposed increase in revenues of 4% and an increase in expenditure of 12%. Arena, the proposed 25 budget includes a revenue decrease of 42%. That is a result of no transfers from reserves as was budgeted in 2024. The proposed increase in expenditure is 10, which covers an increase in staffing and the cost of utilities. At present, staffing is tight at the arena to the point that should one of our 3 full-time positions become sick or require longer leave, the town may have to adjust its operations significantly due to limited staff to operate. 1 more full-time position is required for the arena, and that was approved by council in December, but will not occur until late summer for the new season. Curling rink, the expenditure is anticipated to decrease by 7%, which reflects how staffing is allocated. Facilities, the proposed expenditures to budgeted to increase by 2% to cover the cost of inflation. Museum, in the coming year, we anticipate the expenditure to increase by 64%. The museum requires some major maintenance to maintain this site for many years to come. The museum has a major problem with squirrels, and this issue must be resolved. The squirrels have also caused damage to the wiring in the Roberts house, which will need to be repaired. The windmill also needs repair. The Resource Center, the expenditures are anticipated to increase by 6% due to the need for a new furnace and the replacement of flooring. The Cultural Center revenues are expected to increase by 4%, which is the increase in franchise fees from Fortis. Expenditure is anticipated to increase by 3% to cover door maintenance and painting. The library in 2025 is anticipating revenues to remain the same and expenditures seeing a slight increase of 2%. The 2025 operating budget presented containing an overall decrease of 0.86 of taxes required, to which allow council to raise the mill rate if they so wish. A 1.5% increase to the 2025 mill rate is proposed at this time, and it would generate a surplus of $353,155.24. A 1% mill rate increase would generate a surplus of $334,400. A 1.5 mill rate increase will result in an increase of $38.43 in taxes per year, where a 1 mill increase would result in the increase of $25.62 in taxes per year. That's so at $319,999 is an average home in Gibbons. Last year it was $302,000. So average home has increased by about $18,000. In 2024, the $319,999 house would have cost $2,562.01, whereas the same house in 2025 may experience the following. If council decides on a 1.5, the municipal taxes would be $2,600.44, which is a yearly increase of $38.43. Per month, $3.20, daily 11 cents. The 2025 proposed capital budget for infrastructure. The overlay of Heartland Drive, after 2 years of being constructed, an overlay must take place. Anticipated cost $100,000. Funding $55,979 would come from the LGFF, which is a local government fiscal framework that is provincial grant, and $44,021 from operating. Roads, asphalt maintenance of the town's roads infrastructure by resurfacing some of the deteriorated areas, $200,000, funding through LGFF, which is provincial funding. Hydrants, the addition of 3 hydrants in the downtown core between 50th Avenue and 49th, I'm told. Please see, oh, the three, they're $20,000 each for a total of $60,000, and that funding will come from the provincial funding as well. Skid Shack at the Resource Center for a cost of $45,484. The funding will come from the reserve set aside for capital upgrades when Sauk was turned over to the town from Sturgeon County in 2019. Sand and salt structure, $35,000. Funding will come from LGFF, which is provincial funding. Memorial Park Phase 2 and the start of Phase 3, the cost is $1,572,535. The funding from the Community Facility Enhancement, CFEP, through the Ag Society of $714,128. $658,407 will come from CCBF, which is Community Facility, Canada Community Building Fund, which is federal funding. $200,000 from the Recreational Capital Grant from Sturgeon County. A double niche columbarium costs $25,000, comes from operating funds, and half of it's already been paid in the 2024 budget. Sidewalk pedestrian corridor expansion, $200,000 from LGFF, which is provincial funding. Community Services Public Works truck, $25,000, funding LGFF. Skid steer buyback program, $35,000, funding LGFF. Truck plow, $13,000, funding through LGFF. Water reservoir upgrades, $704,000. $466,000 will come from LGFF, the provincial. $113,000 from offsite levies. $125,000 from MCAC, which is Municipal Climate Action Grant. And IT main server, $35,000 will come from operating. The 2025 capital budget totals $3,330,019, making the best use of both the local government fiscal framework dollars, the Canada Community Building Fund dollars, offsite levies, and the operating fund. $175,591 offsite levies remain. The town is looking at using $200,000 of the $204,109 reserve funds that are set aside every year from the recreation funding provided by Sturgeon County. There remains $14,294 of CCBF, $178,591 in offsite levies, and $4,109 in reserves for a total of $196,994.
All right, thank you very much. Council, it's our third time hearing it. Do you have any questions after that?
You know what, I'd be okay with letting them, maybe to go first. Unless you guys,
Do you have any? Okay,
I have questions, but we'll just.
give them first
it
crack.
might be- yeah, it might
Okay,
be answered.
that sounds fair. All right, public, who would like to go first? Yes, sir.
My name is Daniel Fair. You might remember back, some people do, I ran for council at the by-election. So I consider myself to be an involver. I don't come here, that's a different whole thing altogether, on the regular meetings. Because again, the way that things are set up, not allowed to say, not allowed to speak. So I should come in with binders on, my mouth taped and hearing aids in. That's all you want from people in here. What I don't see in the budget is something, again, that's near and dear to me and a couple of elderly people that I know, is sidewalk repair. There is a budget down in there that talks about sidewalk, but then they talk about a specific area. We have an elderly lady that lives next door to us. She's 80 years of age. She was walking her dog, and it's just up the street a little bit across from the Shell. And if you look at it, that piece of the sidewalk drops down a better part of 6 inches. And with her and her dog and it coming in the evening, she went down face first. Some people in council may
All right, thank you. Curtis, do you know of the areas you're planning on doing this year yet, or?
We haven't confirmed all the areas we are looking at just yet for this year. We have to go through every year. We have to consider all the frosties, damage from wintertime, everything, etc. on that. And we have to tackle the worst of the worst. Concrete, the price of concrete has skyrocketed, so we can only do so much in a limited time frame of the year. Unfortunately, the one on 47th Street, that one got highlighted after the projected budget. Everything got proposed for the previous year, but it is on the list for this year to get done in that area in specific, as that's a major hazard. So as we go through, check all the highlighted extra hazards, those ones will get highlighted and put towards the top of the list as we can.
Thank you.
As an addendum to that, my first question, has there been a survey by an outside entity of the sidewalks? I remember seeing a gentleman walking around and he had one of these, tape measure things that's on, and he was stopping and writing down and he was highlighting areas. I saw a spray paint on some of the sidewalks in there. Is that what you're going by through the chairperson?
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council. So that one, that is us at Public Works. We're going through measuring areas and planning for the year, measuring areas to see how far that budget can stretch in those areas of sidewalks there. And we do refer to our engineering company as well as we're making those plans to see which ones are viable for that year as well.
Okay, thank you. Next. Yes, sir.
Huge increase just because somebody quit.
At this point, because your question really is about who authorized the contract, that's not what this meeting is about. And I can tell you that all of council signed off on the contract at the end of the day.
Well, okay, let me rephrase the question. Our size?
I do, but I don't see two ways around it. Because it was paid out. Thus, we have to account for that.
Where does contract other than this?
Next. Yes, ma'am. I'll let Ms. Jeffrey speak to that, but I can say for sure, based on her, sorry, the word's gone from my mouth, but, from my brain, but from this sheet, synopsis, that's what it was. She specifically mentioned some of the numbers for the capital budget were coming out of the operating budget. So it's already been accounted for in here, and we're pulling it from here to go to the capital.
Sure, I already did the math on that too. Let me assure you that I
Okay.
am an accountant. So, I looked at that and I'm only looking for correction if I'm wrong, but I like to keep things simple. $3 million capital budget, $1.3 million in grants already received. You have the money balancing your budget with your tax payment, so that's a zero now, which means there's still a shortfall of $1.7 million, which to me looks like we're going to stay at an exact same spot that we are basically at the end of '24, at the end of '25, when we repaid principal of 1.7, and we're gonna use that, we'll call it debt allowance. We're gonna keep using it in order to fund the capital that we're going to expend in 2025.
Okay.
So like really there's, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, on the capital budget, there is $1,084,979 that are going to come out of the local government fiscal framework, because $566,155 is the 2025 allocation, $518,824 is the 2024 allocation. Then of the Canada Community Building Fund, the 2025 allocation of $237,471 will go towards Memorial Park. The previous $435,000, if council recalls, in December, that we've received those funds and they went towards the Canada, or towards the Memorial Park. That's what the grant was applied for. Those were 2024 funds. So they will show on page 1 under the $1,149,358. Those funds plus the CFAP grant are in an account by itself, accumulating interest as we speak. And the $200,000 is from the funds that we receive from Sturgeon County. So there is, everything that is in the capital budget is accounted for. $32,000 comes out of the operating. $44,000 on page 1 will come out of operating for the overlay. And the $13,000 for the columbarium comes out of operating. The rest are all grant funds, or they're already in the bank waiting to be spent.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm not tracking. So you're saying that in grants identified, all with acronyms, is 1.3 million, yes? Page 1, line 9, all received. The two grants are on page 1, $1,084,979, right at the top, and the CCBF, $237,471. Those, the $1,084,000 is provincial, the CCBF is federal provincial grants, and then the CFEP and last year's CCBF show up on page 1 towards the bottom, $1,149,358. At the end, there will be of grant funds left, $14,294. And those numbers are allocated and the letters are provided to the municipality on a yearly basis from the minister saying, these are your allocations for the coming year. That's how come we know what the funds are going to be.
So,
Once the budgets are adopted, then I can make application for those projects, and the funds will come after that.
so simple answer to my question. The 1.7 shortfall that I've identified is not in fact a shortfall. It's fully funded. So at the end of 2025, the debt of the town of Gibbons will be reduced by $1.7 million by your calculation.
I can't verify the 1.7 million, but all the principal that is anticipated to be paid on the operating budget, that will reduce the debt that is owed. Correct.
That's fantastic. Thank you so very much.
Okay. Second question?
Second question.
Mayor Eustace and members of council, not to discuss what was budgeted in 2024. The item for the budget for 2025 is 25,000 because our audit is complete. It will be presented to council tomorrow night, and there are no delays, and everything is done. So the price that we'll be paying by the town is what the auditor had initially advised.
So just be sure and clear then. The increase from last year was because it was late, there were delays, there were
Correct.
problems, all of that. Whereas this year, we have not had those and we've already got the audited numbers.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm sure we'll have time to come back for some more.
I'm just gonna stay.
Okay, anybody else? This will be your second, I believe, right?
Yes. Okay, once again, Daniel Fair. 6 years ago, I do believe, before the election, there was a large town meeting of all candidates vying for the council and the mayor, and it was at the Landing Trail School. And I stood up and I asked the council back then, what plans that you people were going to have to give us a second exit out of Landing Trails. So just for the sake of everybody that's not familiar with how Gibbons is laid out, you wind up with Lunnon Street off of 44th Avenue, and then you wind up with the
Thank you. I'm not sure how to comment on that. I can tell you I have heard plans. The dates on them, we don't have. I know that we've got an emergency access out from that end, as necessary, but it would be done with the fire department's direction. It's not a road per se, but there is an access out.
Daryl Burak, in regards to that emergency access road, I personally sent emails to the transportation department. The transportation department has sent me email response back that I forwarded to all of town council. Number one, there was never a permit applied for back when it was the old Fraser property. Two, there is actually laws and regulations that have to be maintained to be a emergency service access road, which we currently don't have. There is supposed to be a ground compaction test done. It's supposed to be minimum 6 meters wide. There's got to be a certain slope into the gradients, which all right now fails. Acknowledged by the fire chief and CAO, that test has not been done yet. So it's kind of like you guys are putting the safety of others, well, on the back seat. As you know, last year there were Stars Air ambulance that blocked off the whole road. And as Daniel said, if there's an accident or something happens, what do we do? That's, you know, there's no excuse for not having something like that in the budget.
The one thing that my comments are based on is, if you go past the school and you can run across, they got a little bit of a parking area there, you go straight across that field over to that highway, the turnpike, okay, Township Road. If you go across that way, so you're saying that it's okay for the town to ask me to break the law by trespassing and destroying somebody's personal private property. This farmer gets income from harvesting those fields.
My understanding is that isn't the direction we're talking about.
Well, I looked at the road, it's a bog if you go down where Tim Horton says now, okay, where that farmer was in. I remember coming to council meeting and that gentleman that owned that house in there, that anything from landing trails where we could actually get out.
Okay.
So, guys, all I'm saying in here is that for the time that I'm still alive, I will be bringing this issue up. We need to have a second exit out.
All right, I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In addition to that, Dennis Mitchell, I've been given since 19. Get an extra exit or an entranceway.
We agree. All right, any others?
Can I ask a question? Well,
Sure.
thank you. I'm just looking at the, this big sheet. And I see that, under local land improvement, there's $1.5 million set aside for the Memorial Park, finish phase 2 and phase 3. Couple of questions. Can you just explain what the numbers in the red numbers on the brackets are, please?
Acting Mayor Yusichyn, members of council, the black is the expenses, the red is the revenue.
Is revenue? So where we're getting the money from? Okay. My second question, with regards to the CCBF or the can you tell me what that acronym is? I'm not quite sure myself.
Acting Mayor Yusichyn, members of council, LGFF is Local Government Fiscal Framework. As I indicated prior, it is a provincial grant. CCBF is Canada Community Building Fund. It is a Canada and provincial grant. CFEP is Community Facility Enhancement Grant. And MCAC is Municipal Climate Action Grant.
Okay, thank you. So this would, I just noticed, why are we spending $1.5 million on a spray park when we have folks concerned about having a second access into town?
Acting Mayor Yusichyn, members of council, the CFEP grant was applied by the Sturgeon Agricultural Society, which was on behalf, like the society and the town, because CFEP cannot be accessed by a municipality, so a nonprofit has to apply on our behalf. That money has been in our hands, and we've already received one extension. So if you wish to not go ahead with this project, we need to return $756,699.41 to the province.
So it's specified for
Yes,
that?
it is. They're all specific grants.
And if I may add, Acting Mayor Yusichyn, members of council, because this grant has been approved for the last few years, we have now actually started spending that funding, so that could even cost a little bit extra if we'd have to finish the portion that's already been started and return the amount of money that would be allocated. Just wanted to make that comment.
And I think it's important to note, though, that, or as well, that the money that has been identified for that Memorial Park through the grant can't be used for anything else. Even if we chose not to go forward with it, we can't take that money and move it towards an exit. That's not an option for us.
So it has to be sent back to the province.
But it's $700,000 that we got. We'll have to come up with the extra 5, right?
We have.
Right, out of reserves and,
No, the reserves
Operating.
are monies set aside by when Sturgeon County provides a recreational grant every year. 50,000 of that recreational grant is to be for capital only. That is set aside every year for that, so that's what the 200,000 is for. And the 223,177 that will come out of Canada Community Building Fund. It's all grant money.
And the 1.149
It's
isn't
already in the account.
from,
We have an account.
from the grant.
Yes.
Yes.
And the previous Canada Community Building Fund that council approved in December to be applied for, which we received, and it was put in the account. So that account is strictly for the Memorial Park, nothing else.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Quick question. I'm getting some messages. Is there a particular reason the volume's off on the live stream?
Oh,
It's muted.
because our normal user doing that isn't here tonight, so we will try and figure it out. Try turning it off and then back on.
always check the gas, always check the gas.
You got it? Okay.
It might just be the residents not being your own microphone that can't be heard.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, they wouldn't be able to hear you because you're not at a microphone.
That's not a bad idea.
I don't know, it's a small room and I think everybody can hear everybody.
We
That's for the
can, but
live
not
stream,
online.
sir.
Online, they won't be able to hear you. I can hear you. Okay. Yep. Thank you, Curtis. And you're good.
Yeah, I would say if the residents would like to use, there's one at the back that we could make available to.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next question. I think, yeah, I think you might be up.
Do you want me to use the mic? Yes. Army, so I can talk really loud.
You, again, it's just for the people online that might have the ability to hear your question now.
So, lines of your budget, 686 through 694. This is under planning and zoning development. There's a 50% increase in wages, and I'm sorry if I missed it in your synopsis. But there's a 50% increase in wages. So in fiscal year '24, it was, we'll call it 97K, and then budgeted at 147. Just wondering why? So repeating, line 686 through 694.
Were you seeing that on an Excel sheet?
Aye.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing numbers on the left-hand side to give me the line number.
Oh, sorry, you're here?
You have last week's, this week's didn't get printed, I don't believe the line items got printed.
Gotcha, okay, so what section are you under?
I think it's planning, I believe.
What did I just say?
686, I think?
Flip one more page.
I think so.
261 probably, was the GL number, 261?
Yeah, there it is. So it's under planning, zoning, and economic development expense. Thank you.
Yeah, no trouble.
Where did that go?
Sorry, my apologies for using an older document.
There it is. It's about halfway through, Jay. Right at the very bottom of the page is planning and zoning. You got it? Okay. So my apologies, I was looking for the page and I missed part of the question.
No, I'm just wondering, I didn't see an explanation as to the significant increase. It's a 50K increase in wages in the department with no explanation.
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, what happened there was, if you remember in the past years, we had a contractor doing economic development as well. That person is no longer there, so this position is doing 2 duties instead of just 1. So they're doing planning, development, and economic development as well. So there's been a shift in salaries.
Gotcha.
So we increased their salary from 90,000 to 150,000? Is there a competition?
Included in there, Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, there's also benefits that go along with that. And there's also attendance to different conferences. That's all part of salaries and benefits.
It's a 50% increase for 1 person. Is that the answer?
I'm sorry, which line are you looking at on there?
Planning and development, the first
So that's under planning, zoning, and economic development expense? Okay. So yeah, there's an increase in training for sure. Increase in workers' comp. So the salary itself looks like it's about a 40,000 increase.
And another 10 in benefits, got it. But if we're only talking about one individual, I'm just asking if it was one individual and there was a decision made to increase their wage, or if there was another hire, it just wasn't explained in the narrative. I'm asking for an explanation, respectfully.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this would also include an increase in salary across the board for people, would it not? Yeah, so that wouldn't necessarily be the increase of one person.
It's a 2% increase, not a 50% increase for salary increases.
And did you not say something to the effect that this person is taken on the responsibilities of another position? That was, yes.
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, yes.
So they received a 50% increase in salary for taking on some additional tasking?
I don't know if we're going to be able to answer that directly right now.
So I would ask that there is an answer proposed at tomorrow's meeting of council, because it's a 50% increase of a salary, of one salary is what I'm sort of hearing. And it should be an easy answer, but I don't feel like there's any transparency in what I'm receiving from council and administration on the ask,
Okay.
respectfully.
All right.
Do I have another one?
Sure.
So, and I apologize again, it's line 682, so I'm gonna find it. It's in the same area. It's actually the very last line in your budgets of planning and zoning revenue. And there's $1.3 million identified for revenue stream within the operating budget to offset operating expenses for the year, in order to go back to that original statement that I made where the 1.5% actually works for an increase in tax assessment. But there's a $1.3 million that we've booked into revenue for the year 2025 for the sale of land. The sale of 3 parcels, 4 as I understand it, 1 parcel already sold. But 3 other parcels, 2 that have been on the market for the last couple of years, and 1 parcel being the cottage properties. So I'm wondering why we're booking at this point in time unrealized revenue. It's a bad accounting principle, but.
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, budgets are all anticipated revenues and anticipated expenses. That's how budgets are made. And for the cottage lands, there are 2 interested buyers in it at the moment. And the other 2 lots have been on the market since January
I was going
of
to say,
this
I
year.
don't think they're the ones that have been on for 2 years. I believe we're talking about the ones beside the Legion, correct? Yeah. And those have just been on since January, you said? Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. No, still me?
While she's looking, anybody else have one? Okay, let's keep going.
So, in the notes, there was an indication that an additional position needed to be hired for the arena. When I look at the wages for 2024, the wages for the arena were $235.6K. The wages budgeted for 2025 are $225.5K, ergo a $10K decrease in wages. So I'm wondering where the increased person that I believe the indication or the narrative indicated was starting in the summer is being captured in the wage envelope. And further to that, the arena revenue has also significantly decreased, now resting budgeted in 2025 at 278.7K with an expense of 629.8K, which actually realizes a loss of $350,000 on the arena. So if we're losing money in the arena and we want to hire more staff for the arena, why aren't we boosting our revenue in the arena? So there's 3 questions in there, my apologies.
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, arenas never make money. That is a part of municipal services that will end up coming out of taxes. And the arena revenues have increased substantially over the years. It all depends, and I know that our anticipation for revenues may be low, but the staff are very busy and the arena is closed 6 weeks of the year. They're open the rest of the year, so staffing is required to maintain that facility, and they're never sit still, they're always busy.
So in the budget, the reduction in arena revenue from 2024 to 2025 is a reduction of $35,000. It is actually a reduction of $200,000 from what was budgeted for 2024. So there's a whole lot of unanswered questions in that. Budgeted in 2024 at $480,000, realized at $311,000, and budgeted for 2025 at $278,000, but yet we're asking for an increase in salaries.
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, in the narrative, I explained why that the revenues in the arena had reduced, because in 2024, there was a transfer from reserves of $134,386, which is not happening this year. Ergo, that is why that there is a difference. And
That transfer was only budgeted, it wasn't actually booked in 2024, it was budgeted in 2024.
and those are the numbers that you are using, ma'am? Those are the numbers that you are using, is 480,000 to
They're your numbers, ma'am.
278?
They're yours, I didn't make them up.
And the position was approved by council in December.
So an increase of position, I'm still not making sense of the fact that the wages, actual wages in 2024 were $235,000, your numbers, and the budget, your numbers, for 2025 are $225,000. So I'm not seeing the increase in wage.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but part of that is because you transferred for appropriateness where people were working for the arena versus the curling rink, correct?
That's correct, Acting Mayor Yusish? Okay, go ahead.
Exactly, actually, as you were saying, there was one position that was primarily working out of Public Works, so we transferred some of that allocation into Public Works. Also, with the inclusion of a new full-time member, we'll also be able to reduce our casual staff numbers too. So with some of the reallocation of those salaries and just a change in what that full-time versus using casuals for coverage would make a difference in that as well, on top of what Monique had said.
Brilliant, thank you for your explanation, that makes sense. I can go all night, kids. So, from a capital perspective, I was here when a lot of conversation was happening with regard to the Heartland Cottage property and the capital development for the Heartland Cottage property, coming in at 4 million and change for the property, and then 2 million for these required and mutually exclusive sewer upgrades for the Tone subdivision. Now, I see, since the Heartland Cottage property development has fallen off the table and that property is now being sold, the sewage, what do you call that, sewage, make it good again. The sewage repair or development for Tone subdivision also doesn't seem to be on the capital plan, and I'm wondering why. When I was told, in words of one syllable, that they were mutually exclusive and that the 7 properties in the Tone subdivision area were at risk for sewage failure because of the subsidence of the bank. Anyway, I'm an accountant. I like to keep it simple, so I don't understand anything about that mud work. Those are blue jobs. But I want to know why it's not, because I have a vested interest, why it's not on the capital plan.
Are you able to answer that, Curtis, or do you know?
Sorry to put you on the spot, Curtis.
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council. I'll try to answer to the best of my knowledge. So currently the Tone subdivision, those 7 properties in question are serviced by a lift station that is located down in the river valley. It is located north of the area that has sloughed into the river previously. With the cottage project, that area was going to get upgraded to tie into the same servicing system as the cottages project. But since that project is no longer on the table, the old system is still viable. I mean, I can't go against nature, but you know, currently it is still a viable system and in operation.
But we were told that it was of great concern and it had to be done. $2.2 million. Wait, I'm exaggerating. 2.1.
Yeah, that total cost would be the total cost of the entire cottages project with the Tones upgrade as well.
That's not what we were told. That's not what
Yeah.
we were told.
So if I may interrupt, the Tone subdivision was just under $1 million. It was 900 and I can't remember if it was 67. Yeah, it was just under $1 million. So it was scales of economy. How I understood it was if we're already doing the cottage subdivision, let's do this Tone at the same time. Let's upgrade that subdivision.
Makes complete sense.
So it was just under $1 million, and that is not on the capital project at this time.
And your answer makes complete sense. The answer that I got in the first place didn't.
Which is the Tone subdivision?
Behind Williams Park on the River Valley side.
Okay, that's down other end.
The other side of the tracks, boy.
Yep.
The other side of the tracks.
Ms. Morrison, I recall what you're referring to. From what I understand, there were 2 tenders that were put out for, one was for the repairs for the Tone subdivision, and the other one was something else, not quite sure, can't remember offhand. But they were incorporated into one lump sum of money. So, yes, they were. Would you like me to show you, Ms. Jeffrey? Because I'll bring that for you tomorrow if you'd like.
We took out, council approved a debenture bylaw for the Tone subdivision, separate from the cottage subdivision.
That's right. But there were 2 different projects within that 900 and some thousand dollars.
The cottage subdivision was over 3 million.
Yeah.
And the Tone subdivision was 900 and some
That's right.
thousand. That's correct.
I recall. So a total of $4 million. But if I'm not mistaken, it was urgent because there was a repair that needed to be done because of the washout down there, if I'm right?
That's what was stated.
That's what
but
was stated.
I appreciate your answer.
So is that repair not necessary anymore, or?
I think that we received information at that point in time. We can't fix the past, in all honesty.
That's right.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
I agree, but I mean, you're right. If that was an issue for the folks who live in your area, and it was a necessary repair at that time,
But I think the answer has been that it maybe wasn't a necessary repair at the time, and I appreciate your answer.
wow.
I'm just gracious. So, one question under the area of requisition, I'll stop using line numbers, but under requisitions, it's the very last line. It's prior year shortfall recovery, 130K. What is this?
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, under the Municipal Government Act, Section 244, subsection 1, if the accumulated surplus net of equity in tangible capital asset is less than zero, the municipality must include a budgeted expenditure in the next calendar year that is sufficient to recover the shortfall. And that's what that is for, and you will hear from the auditor tomorrow night what that is.
Monique, she's asking if you can read that one more time.
Read it one more time, I'm sorry.
If the accumulated surplus net of equity in tangible capital asset is less than zero, the municipality must include a budgeted expenditure in the next calendar year that is sufficient to recover the shortfall.
So, and you'll respond with the specifics?
It's 130,000 of shortfall that needs to be budgeted in this year's budget to cover the shortfall from 2024.
The specifics of why there was a shortfall?
Pardon me?
The specifics of why there was a shortfall?
Because the accumulated surplus net of equity in tangible capital asset is less than zero.
Why was it less than zero? As my learned friend over here just asked.
Okay.
Eight twelfths of our EI.
Yes, Acting Mayor Yusish. The employment insurance is reduced. So under the law, some of those reductions have to be passed on to the staff. This was done long before I ever came, but that money then is used for some Christmas party or things for staff, and that's what that is.
Okay, so line 96 is your Christmas party for $3,750 budget for 2025.
And it would include things like someone long service award or things like administration week this week, those kinds of things. That's what that is used for. Or professional development. Sometimes speakers come in to speak to staff on different matters such as occupational health and safety, those kinds of issues, and some of these people, we have to pay for them.
Okay,
And that gets paid through the offset of the savings of insurance, basically.
That's correct.
Okay.
So you're able to reduce your EI payment? Because you have a social fund, you're able to reduce your EI payment?
Acting
No.
Mayor Yusish, members of council, the EI premiums are reduced because of the benefit plan, long-term disability, short-term disability, those types of benefits.
And then that savings went into the social club.
HR manager, does that make sense to you?
it didn't make sense to me how that would come out of that, but I'm going to have to trust what she's telling us. So International Women's Day, $2,500.
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, it's for our International Women's Day event that we host every year.
What is that?
So this year we did there was a lunch that was registered for, as well as a bunch of activities as part of International Women's Day that you could register for. We did it at significantly reduced cost, and that was a town event.
Well, maybe we should get
I believe there's 3 fire hydrants being added / replaced in the budget this year now.
Thinking, we're replacing 3 fire hydrants downtown. I believe there's one on Lumen Drive that there's a little sign that says out of service. I know my dog uses it all the time. Why do we have out of service fire hydrants in the residential area?
Acting Mayor Eustachians, member of council. The 3 proposed fire hydrants are new fire hydrants being installed between 49th Avenue and 50th Avenue. This would encompass a shortfall of hydrant for fire flow protection for the residents in those areas. In the operating budget, we do have, I believe it's around $25,000 scheduled for hydrant maintenance for this year. That is separate from those new installations. So that will cover the repairs for the cost to repair those hydrants that are out of service.
Any anticipated time when they'll be operational? Because if my house is beside one, I want the fire truck to be able to plug into one if it's needed.
Depending on how far the funding goes, they should be operational towards the end of this year, but I cannot guarantee a specific date at this time, depending on contractors' availability and our staff availability for that as well.
From an outsider looking in, do you not think that this sounds absolutely ridiculous? We're spending money on, and no disrespect to women, but you're spending money on Women's Day, you're spending money on Christmas parties, but the lack of safety for the community with sidewalk repair and fire hydrants, and you have the audacity to say, we'll see what's in the budget. Take the damn budget out of the other stuff that you guys are spending frivolous money on and put it towards the community. It's pretty simple.
Safety
Basic.
first. Safety trumps everything.
Dale, I have some of the things that you're mentioning, the Women's Day and some of the other, at face value, look frivolous to you, are things that are done as part of family and community support services. The town receives provincial funding. 80% of that funding is provincial, and the town matches it 20%, 80%, total 100. That money is spent on preventative social programming. And things like the Women's Day celebration fall under preventative social programming. And we don't have a choice of how we spend that money. That is provincial money that comes to us for that purpose, for preventative social programming.
If he's saying that for the 80% that's funded, I'm thinking he's saying take the other 20% and put it into safety.
You can't, otherwise you lose the 80.
Oh, okay.
But if I'm not mistaken, everything that's being paid with something other than a grant is tax money, correct? And the fact that council has not gone line by line and approved a $2,500 Women's Day or the Christmas party or anything of the sort is despicable. Because I still can't answer any of the questions from any of the residents about why we even get a 1.5% increase in taxes. So I think that we should let the community know that this is actually going to be approved tomorrow, regardless of whether or not there are questions by council or otherwise. So, because normally we would go through and we would approve it. We wouldn't be told what we're approving. That's all I have to say.
So you're saying that you
What I'm saying, ma'am, is council are the ones who decide at the end of the day what we're spending tax money on, not the administration.
to that.
if I may as well, with the increase in the assessments of the homes actually, because they've increased as well, means quite a substantial increase to some residents on their property taxes. So while it sounds wonderful that, our assessment value has gone up, to the extent that has been quoted, that doesn't mean that that's a good thing necessarily, because there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be paying a lot more taxes than.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Jeffrey, but your example of a house in 2024 being 319,999 on a 1.5% increase would be a $38 a year increase. That includes assessment increase, does it not?
In 2020, Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council, in 2024, the average house was 302,000.
Okay,
So the average house increased by $17,000 to $18,000. Some increased more, some increased less. And using the 2024 mill rate on the increased assessment is where the difference comes. So if you had that $319,000 house in 2024 with the increase of the 1.5, because the assessments, we have no control over that. So the only control that is had is on the mill rate. It's going to be that difference.
So if
It's
your
going to
house
make
was
a big impact to
319
some
in
people.
2024, and you add $15,000 to the value of your home, so now the value of your home is $334,000. Your increase is 1.5% on 334,000.
correct,
Not on the 319.
correct.
Please also consider, when you're making a vote for the community of Gibbons, that the provincial rate, because of the increase in the school tax, has also increased. So that's going to add another $120,000 to that $330,000 home. All right, so the school tax is increased, the provincial tax is increased, and as my learned friend over here indicated, 25% increase on the town water bills and garbage collection. Garbage collection, which by the way, the town profits $100,000 a year on garbage collection that they charge the citizens for. Based on your budget, ma'am.
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council, and when the garbage contract was approved, council made the decision at that time that $60,000 of that from the garbage profit, would go towards policing, which is what happens every year.
All right. Next question?
I have one more question. So it's line 444, and last two lines in sewer expense, transfer to capital, transfer to reserves. So we have a debit and a transfer to capital of 66.7K, and we have a credit, it's not in red, but it's a credit to transfer to reserves. I don't know how we credit transfers, but okay, of 171.1K. Can you explain?
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council, the transfer to capital is for the lease on the vac truck. And the transfer to reserves, why it's a credit, it should be transferred from reserves. There's a shortfall in the sewer budget for this coming year of $171,148.
So where do you transfer that from? The transfers back and forth, transfer to capital from different departments, transfer to reserves, they're a little bit confusing. If you could briefly explain why that happens? Is it like directed revenue and then you've got a surplus, so you're transferring it out? Is that the intent? Or to capital?
What happens under the Municipal Government Act, water, sewer, and garbage have to operate on their own. And if you recall, in the fall, it was brought to council's attention, and that's why the rates were raised for these three, or for the two utilities, was because with the extra work that needed to happen, we needed to raise the rates. But since that took place, then there's some other expenditures that have cropped up under the sewer that the budget, and hopefully next year, but those are done separately. So water utility, sewer utility, they have to balance to zero. If there is a surplus, then they're put into a surplus account to draw from in future years should the need be. This one in the sewer, there will be a shortfall in 2025, which we will have to recoup next year. In the water account, there is a surplus which will be set aside for future so that the rates don't have to go up.
So I thank you for that explanation, and just staying on the transfer line, if I draw your attention under firefighting expense, and if we then look to the third from last line under, third from last line above the interest and principal payments, the black line. So it's transfer to local government that was made in 2024 of $422,100, but nothing in this year or other years. So that's a real anomaly. What is that for?
I'm sorry, I don't have the papers in front of me. I will have to, yes, I see that, but I can't explain it to you right off the top of my head. I'll have to go
That being
back to the
last
system.
year's number, yeah.
Yeah, and it's last year's number. It's not, we're dealing with the budget at the moment.
Yep. Thank you.
So,
Sorry, 1 second.
absolutely, of course.
Just for clarification, it was mentioned that the 1.5% did not account for whatever we're paying in education. Language here. We're paying the education amount that's added to our taxes, and also the seniors amount that's added to our taxes. Could you remind me how much that education amount is going to be for 2025, and also how much the seniors amount is going to be for 2025?
Acting Mayor Yusish, members of council, I don't have the tax rate bylaw in front of me. It will be presented to you tomorrow night. I will be able to tell you what though it is. I don't have the numbers in my head, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
It's an increase to $2.76 per $1,000 of your home assessed value. One more question? So it's line 780, but for clarity, it's under community services revenue. And it's identified as community league revenue. In all fiscal years, it's $30,000 in revenue, but there was no revenue in 2024, and there is no revenue in 2025. So I'm kind of wondering why the line is even there.
So I actually asked for that line to be removed. Our community league used to put on major events, and after COVID, we have not revitalized that. So it was getting redundant. So that's why we removed that line item for now, unless that community league comes back and active again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your explanation. So in that same area, oh, I'm lying. I hate it when I lie. Nobody likes that girl. So under fitness center, there's an expense for the fitness center lease. There wasn't anything in 2024, but now it's approximately $25,000 for a fitness center lease in 2025 and every year thereafter. What does that represent?
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council, every year it's an internal transfer for the fitness center, the lease, and the auditors take it away every year. So they never put it, and I've had that argument with them, but that's been budgeted. I can easily remove that if you wish. That's not a big deal.
So it's, you're in essence recognizing a charge because the town pays for the fitness center as a whole, and you're saying we should have an expense for that, like the fitness center itself should have an expense to help you cover those costs. Is that the intent?
The intent was that the fitness center would possibly maybe be bought out by somebody at one time, and they would, because it is somewhat, it's a town activity, but they were going to be charged lease, but it's an internal transfer. So the auditors say, so that'll be removed.
Okay, so the fitness center, can you just explain that again? Because I thought that the fitness center employees and that was a town-run facility. So what about the lease? What about the transfer of payment? I just didn't understand that.
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council. So it would show as a revenue to the GFRC or the GCC and an expense to the fitness center, but it's just an internal transfer. It's not actually that they write us, we don't write a check to ourselves.
So I guess one way to potentially explain it would be if the fitness center ever sold publicly, then they would actually pay us that amount in a lease. Because we currently own it and run it, we pay ourselves that lease, kind of.
But your auditor won't let you. I thank you for your time. I thank you for entertaining your questions. Ashley Morrison's going to go sit down now. But I appreciate your time and I appreciate the answers, and thank you for the clarity.
Thank you. All right. Please.
Line 73, and that's on the old one, it says GA contract, $175,000. What is that for?
Acting Mayor Yusishin, members of council, that is for the contract employee, and that rate has not changed in 4 years. That's me. And it's never that high, but I get paid for the hours that I'm here.
Do we have a lot of contract employees?
No.
Just myself.
Okay. Sure.
Hi, Donna Smart. Well, my question is, it shows the council their salaries, but where is the CAO's, what he's gonna make and all that, where is that located, or anybody else that might not be on this budget? Is it somewhere that I'm missing?
Acting Mayor, Musician, members of council, it would become part of admin salaries, and it is not, salaries are not identified separately.
Yeah. So it would be lumped in with all the other administration salaries.
So which line would that be on?
I don't have line numbers, but if you look at administration expense, the one in green, salaries, wages, and benefits,
It's on the second page. On page 2.
58. Thank you, Curtis. Okay.
I just have a follow-up question. You said that you're a contract employee, or are you a contractor? Because it's paid under MEMJ Consulting Limited. If you could clarify that, please.
The company, MEMJ, is the company that I work for.
So then that would preclude you from being a contract employee, right?
Excuse me, but I don't understand what you're referring to.
Which, in all honesty, isn't a budgetary type question, so.
Not true. There's $175,000 earmarked for that. That's a budgetary item.
I have another question that is budgetary.
Okay.
There's a severance amount on, sorry, just check my phone. I don't have the line item, not that it would matter. It was in the amount of $223,000. Was that the severance in its entirety? Is everything in that 223?
Acting Mayor, Musician, members of council, yes, it is.
Can I ask one more, please? So in the agenda package, the severance amount that was listed in that agenda package was $223,826.46. So there seems to be, can you explain the discrepancy of the $826.46, please?
Not off the top of your head. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Oh,
Just one observation, between us, is that
you've definitely given us things to think about. Yes.
okay, so that means then, between now and tomorrow night, whatever we're thinking about, you need to change.
I could be wrong. My understanding is we have to vote on the mill rate basically tomorrow because of the timing of the tax notices that have to go out. But I think adjustments to the budget, we potentially have the ability to make adjustments throughout the year if we need to, do we not?
Mayor, Musician, members of council, yes, you can amend the budget at any point in time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Let's call it a night, folks. Thanks for coming out.